All right, so the news came out yesterday that Slemmy was picked up by Cloud9. He's going to be their newest addition, their in-game leader, moving forward as well, which might be a little bit confusing. A lot of people don't know much about Slemmy, myself actually included, but his history, at least in ESEA, is very little professional level experience. Actually, very little invite even, especially recently. He did play in some teams like many seasons back. Um, but for the most part, he's just been on playoff level premier teams. He's played a lot with the guys that are currently in Kona, who are whatever they might be, 1-18 or 1-19 in the league so far. Guys like Ocean and Els and Ruru. His last actual pro experience was he only played 3 matches in the season. It was at the end of 24, right around that time that there was the iBuyPower lineup that was supposed to be God tier. That day's Hiko, Swag, Ska, and AZK, just right around that kind of end of the year month or two, and may they rest in peace. The past season, he's this current season, I guess it would be, or this past season of ESEA, he's played in Premier with the guys that are ex-Obey Alliance. They're the team that went to the North American Minor at the beginning of the year for the Columbus Major. They actually beat out Optic there. They have a little bit of young talent with a guy named DSR, who I remember was pretty solid at the minor, competing at that level, and a guy named No One, who's kind of the similar situation, just some unknown talent that coming up on that squad. Anyways, they had a very good season. They were going to be in playoffs. They're going to the LAN, and he has left them to join Cloud9. Can't really say too much about that, just because this is a big opportunity in terms of salary, in terms of money, exposure, career, whatever you might have. It's just a little bit unfortunate that it happened at this time in the season, but I don't think you can really blame him for leaving that team for Cloud9. I don't really. I've been thinking about this a little bit since then, or a lot, and I don't really see much upside to this pickup in the sense that Slemmy's not going to add much to this team. I think more what he's going to do is take away some of the burden, some of the pressure on Nothing being the in-game leader, being the caller, allow him to be and have more of an impact individually. I don't really get the sense that he's going to have these innovative tactics, that he's going to be able to read the game on some sick level the way Sean could and make mid-round calls. I still think tactically the biggest impact is going to come from Irakanji, who's going to be limited in a coaching role because I think he's just now completing dentist school. He's going to be a full-time dentist, so he's not actually coaching the team full-time, but I still think he's going to be strategically and tactic their biggest voice on that team. Slemmy essentially, this is what's kind of crazy, is that he's actually just going to provide basic structure to the team, because you could see with Nothing as an in-game leader, an experiment which Cloud9, to be fair to them, they actually had to try that at the time once Sean left. He's not used to calling tactics. He's not used to keeping control of his team throughout a round, and he lost track of it a little bit here and there at times, and it got very disorganized. It got very confused and muddled in the mid-round, and that's kind of where Cloud9 has seemed to have struggled over these past few months. Slemmy coming in isn't supposed to add anything. It's just supposed to take that pressure off of Nothing and allow him to thrive a little bit more as an individual. Give Cloud9 more firepower that way. That's kind of how I see his role in this team, because I don't see him coming in and being able to control already established players. I don't think he's going to come into a guy like Skadoodle and say, listen, you're amazing, you're really, really good, but you get too immobile on CT sides. You're very easy to predict on certain maps on the defense. You just like to play your one spot, and you play it very, very well. But we need you to be more mobile. We need you to start moving around the map. I don't see him being able to change that kind of tendency in a player like Skadoodle. Same with Nothing and Shroud. I don't think he's going to be able to command them in a way that he's going to come in as an in-game leader and be like, this is the system I want to run. This is what I think is going to be most effective with the players that we have. So let's try it for 2 months, and let's see what happens, and we can tweak things as we go. I just don't imagine he's going to be able to do that. There's one really big thing that about Slemmy that really fucks with my head, and it's that when this pickup happened, I was so confused because there were so many pros in the North American scene that came out on Twitter in support of Slemmy, which is all well and good, saying things like, "Oh, this is a really sick in-game leader. I don't see any player really." Preparing and watching demos and doing such and such the way that Slemmy has. Here's a guy who's an incredible talent, an incredible in-game leader, and he's deserved a chance for some time, and I'm glad to see him finally get it with Cloud9. And that's got to be the biggest bullshit ever. Every team in North America over the past year or two has struggled and lacked with the leadership category. So if this guy, if he's got this much respect among certain teams and players in the North American scene, why hasn't he been picked up yet? Why has no one grabbed him? So I mean, I don't really buy into this sense from other North American pros that he's going to be this good in-game leader. There's no reason, if that's true, that he's gone, on premier teams for 3 seasons in a row, and before that 3 games at a professional level, and before that on a main team, and before that on an open team. There's no reason he hasn't been picked up in the past. So I mean, I'm not really buying into the current North American scene's hype for him being this in-game leader, this effective in-game leader, at least at the moment. What it says about Cloud9, and I want to start by being a little bit fair to them, because I think you're absolutely crazy if you think that Slemmy was Cloud9's first option. There's no way Cloud9 was looking around and they were just like, okay, who should we go after? Slemmy, that's our first pick, let's go for him. There's no doubt that, much like they did when Sean left, they made the rounds through the scene, around the community. I'm sure they went to, I doubt they went to Pronex because he's got his own team that just had a lot of success, but I'm sure they went to guys like Gabi, who's currently with Energy. I'm sure they went to Existence, who's kind of teamless. I'm sure they went to, a bunch of European people. I'm sure they went to, I don't know, actually. There's no one in North America I imagine they went to, except I imagine they just went to all the European guys who were free or on some kind of team or low contract situation and tried to pry them away, just throw some money at them, much like they did right after Sean left. And obviously that doesn't work. And this is kind of why, I sent out a tweet the other day that was like, if you want to be a pro Counter-Strike player in North America, become an in-game leader, become a tactician, because none of the Europeans want to come over here and deal with the headache of players who don't have that much discipline, and they also, I mean, a lot of them just flat out don't want to move and live in North America for the majority of the year. So, this is kind of a situation where it just shows how desperate the situation is in North America. That's not to bash on Slubby in that way, but that's just to say, if he's going to be the option for one of the biggest organizations in North America, we're lacking in this department. And it's been obvious for a couple seasons. This is just a good example of how bad it is. This is a guy with very little actual professional experience. Not to mention, when I initially saw this announcement, I thought, okay, with Slemmy, and then they had Stewie before that, these guys are trying to go younger. They're trying to discover some talent and bring them up, and they're going to focus on developing this team. I was so wrong. Slemmy's 25 years old. He's not young whatsoever. This is very late in the day to be getting your first real professional experience, especially as an in-game leader, especially as someone who's expected to control this team through intense matches, through some of the best matches with the best teams in the world. And this might be a topic for a different video at some point, but just in general, there seems to be this trend in North America that actually we're not picking up very young talents. We're getting them late in the day. We're saying you have to prove yourself first, but there's no opportunities for some of the young guys to prove themselves. So, picking someone up at 25 who hasn't been playing professionally for 4 seasons is maybe even 5 seasons, depending on how you want to look at it. But this is very, very late for Slemmy to be doing this. So a little bit worrying in that sense. But what it does actually say is that Cloud9 is willing to get some less experienced players, some smaller names, instead of bringing in just, the high-profile guys that they already know what these guys are going to bring to the table, guys who might have had success and might be more resistant to change, maybe even working hard. So they're obviously at the moment, they want to pick up people with desire and with the willingness to work versus having some kind of massive skill set. Which is good because they have a lot of talent on them, and this is kind of going along with that. It seems like Cloud9 has also kind of gone to their guys and they've been like, listen, this isn't working anymore. Like, there's no sense of urgency with you guys. It doesn't seem to be motivated. There's been a lot of questions about how much these guys actually care over the past 6, 7, 8 months. And that's a very fair question. I mean, it's always going to be a question with a team that has such a high-profile streamer Shroud on it. But even Skadoodle, it was very obvious that he wasn't putting in a lot of hours outside of practice and outside of matches. That seems to have changed. There's been a lot of public posting and knowledge that Skadoodle actually had a conversation with guys like Cold Zera, I think it was, and Fallen at MLG, who kind of helped him find this new. Kind of get him back in the mood to practice, to deathmatch, this renewed motivation to become a better player. And we've seen the results of that. He looked good in the matches that I casted them in just yesterday. And I think he also has something like 90-some hours over the past 2 weeks in Counter-Strike. So this is Cloud9, either the organization, either Stunna as the manager, or just the players getting together and saying, we need to put in more work. We need to do more on the off hours. We need to do more individually outside of practice, outside of matches. maybe they're realizing that they had been coasting a little bit just based off the reputation that core had, that reputation that Cloud9 has had as always being one of the best teams in North America. So this is good. The one thing is, you know, this coincides with Slemmy being picked up, but you got to be very careful on how you look at Cloud9 moving forward and who's having the most impact, because I really, in my opinion, I don't think Slemmy is going to be the one that's going to make this team play better. I don't think it's his pickup gets them past their current form. I don't think it improves upon that. But because he's coming in, because he's taking pressure off nothing could have an improved performance, which could elevate Cloud9. Skadoodle starting to have this kind of practice regimen might help elevate Cloud9. Stewie's development, because he's always been known as a guy who's just grinding bugs, grinding ESEA, grinding FPL, whatever it might be. He's going to help them elevate. So Slemmy's addition might just coincide with timing wise, but you got to look at how he's going to be leading this team, because like I said, it's not going to be anything creative. It's not going to be anything detailed or complex. They're not going to be outplaying too many people strategically. I think it's just going to give them the structure they need to be a little bit more comfortable in the game. And then they're still just going to rely on the skill sets of Nothing, of Shroud, of Skadoodle, and even Stewie if he continues to improve, to carry them through games. They're essentially bringing Slemmy and saying, we don't care about your actual statistical output. We don't care about the number of frags you get. We just want someone who's used to leading. Don't even have to be a fantastic leader. We just want someone who's used to having to play while calling tactics, while leading a team, because he's not able to adjust to that kind of role. I mean, I don't think this pickup is necessarily good or bad. I don't think it moves Cloud9 either way. I think it just kind of shows a shift in how they're thinking, how their thought process, that they've finally started to realize that there's not enough work being put in if they want to compete for the best in the world. They could probably coast along like this and be, one of the top 3 teams in North America. But if that's their goal, then fine. But they seem to be at least shifting that to say we want to be back to being able to compete on the world stage, and bringing in people who want to do that. Will that happen? Don't know. It's all gonna matter on Ska, on Shroud, on Nothing. Those are the 3 big heavy hitters. Nothing is notoriously up and down. Shroud as well has a big drop off from online to tournaments. He's had a couple really good tournaments here or there, but nothing that compares to what we see from him in the online leagues. And a lot of it's going to come out of Skadoodle, who's hopefully this practice that he's putting in outside of matches, continues to improve him, because he needs to get back to that masterclass level of 2015, of just before Cologne last year, when people were actually and legitimately debating whether he was a better op than Guardian, whether Guardian was the better op, or whatever it might have been at that time, because he's dropped off massively. He's probably been the biggest drop off of all of their players, so he needs to get back to that level. And hopefully, I think Slemmy's addition is just really to allow those individual players to get a little bit better and reach their peaks again.